sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media outlets publish these same fake stories without checking facts first. Unfortunately, some members of the media platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think, and this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
The following is a pattern interruption of your regularly scheduled brainwashing program.
Welcome to the Reality OS. I'm Peter Duke, and I'm joined today by Addy Adds, and we're going to be talking about hot takes and hot fakes. How you doing, Addy?
I'm doing well, Peter. It's good to reconnect, man. It's been a while, you know. In 2022, I think this is our first connection this year. So.
Yeah. And where did January go? Like, boom, gone.
Yeah, is nuts. Even going back to the 6th last year, and then covering the Maxwell trial. That was a crazy 4 weeks, but yeah, like I said, it's great to reconnect.
Well, you kind of blew up in the Maxwell trial, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
When Addy and I were getting ready to do the show today, we were talking about some news item. I don't even remember what it was, and Addy brought it up, and I was like, and I said, wasn't that like the news 3 days ago or something? And Addy just started talking about how his life has become a blur. And it's difficult to keep up with all the hot takes, and then you mix up all of the hot fakes, all of the other stuff that's going on, and making sense of reality, which is kind of the topic of this. The title of this show is difficult. So we thought that we'd talk about the struggle of keeping up with the news.
Yeah, no, it was something that I noticed because it was, in the summer last year when I was in the Carolinas and kind of the second half of the year, for a lot of it, I was covering a lot of the daily beat geopolitically and the breaking news and such. And it's very, very easy, and I would say even incentivized to get overwhelmed with that. And, covering the Maxwell trial, entering it, I went in with pretty much no expectations. I had nothing to, compare it to really. And I didn't realize that I was one of the more well researched and read people on the whole Epstein Maxwell network at the time of the start of the trial. So in that sense, covering the trial, it was very fulfilling, but also, we only have so much time in a day. And that's something I realized too, is the trade-off when you go into a deep subject or you go into the depth of the subject. You trade off that breadth of understanding what's going on in the day-to-day.
Right. So tell me about that. When you showed up, like how many reporters were there? How many people were covering the story?
Every single day, or
yeah.
As far as the people who were there every single day, I initially said at one point it was like 5 or so, but I think it was a little exaggerative there.
So one of the most sensational stories in the world, and there were 5 reporters there every day.
I think I was being a little exaggerative. Someone said 150. I don't think it's that much. I would say it's probably 20 to 30 maybe that were there most days, to put it as accurate as possible. Probably a little less that were there every single day. But that's just reporters. I'm not talking court security officers or administrative personnel or anything like that. But yeah, in that sense, it was, like I said, I was completely focused on that one topic, so I didn't really know what was going on with anything else. And then kind of coming out of that, it's a bit disorienting. The transition periods, those are the in a way the key moments. Finding out what to cover next. But I'm finishing up my book on the trial, and that should be out by the end of the week. So
terrific. Where can people find that?
That'll be on Amazon. Yep.
Yeah.
Until I find a publisher who wants to work with me. Not that
Right.
I'm actively looking, but yeah, it'll be on Amazon. So
Well, very good. Very good. So yeah, when we were so I have other questions about the. So you said that you were surprised that you were as well briefed as you were, and other people weren't. So do you think that that's because all of those quote unquote mainstream reporters, they've got a job that they do every day, and they get sent out to a different beat every day, and they're expected to kind of cover it? Or is it up to their producers to fill them in on what's going on because they're really just talking heads? Or why do you think that you had an advantage in your knowledge base there?
well, I think some of the best sources being, you know, some of the victims themselves, like Maria Farmer, who I have a relationship with, and Sean Atwood, Ryan Dawson, I think are probably the two the two best resources on the Epstein network, as far as I can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I had a very good background understanding of what was going on with the network. But as far as the other reporters, it kind of varied. There was a guy from the Epoch Times who just kind of got thrown into the deep end a little bit, and they were like, "Okay, go cover this," and he really didn't have anything to work on previously as far as his understanding of the trial. And the mainstreamers, I talked to some of them about it. Some of them have been following it for varying periods of time, but those people, I think they think about this work in a very different way. I'm not really sure, to be honest, how they think about it, but and the reason I say that is because there's obviously, maybe not obviously, but to me it's obvious, but there's things they can't say, or things they can't talk about. For example, the BBC interviewed me. The BBC,
Mm-hmm.
British
The big bro-
Broadcasting Corporation.
the Big Brother Corporation.
Yeah. And they didn't use any of my interview audio recording in their when they release on their trial. So, there is a willingness there to talk to me, maybe even naive.
So is that
naively
because
so,
it just
but-
goes into it just goes into your MI6 file, or?
Yeah, maybe that's what it was about. It was like there was no chance for an interview at all.
Right.
But I even pulled punches a bit there. I didn't go, full Mike Tyson biting the ear off type of info release. I did mention Wexner's name, so maybe that was what prevented that. But
Oh, really? So you say the wrong name and boom, you're not on there. And Tracy and I talk about that all the time on this show, about like what you're allowed to say and what. Because of course Tracy's not here today. Tracy's off doing her job. So Addy thought that he'd jump in here today, and thank you for doing that, Addy. But
course, yeah.
I don't have the, Jeremy from the Quartering and Jason Burmis and Luke Rutkowski all have a very good understanding and feeling, Tim Pool, for what you can say and what you can't say, and so they're constantly self-editing themselves. Jason Burmis calls the hypodermic the boop boop, and
their own code.
and
code language.
Luke calls the virus the sickness. So because I've said the word virus, I'm probably going to show up on some AI bot, which will put me on some kind of list or something. So I'm not smart that way in talking in secret language. And Jeremy on the Quartering is really good at just not saying things. Like he'll get to a part, he'll be reading a web page and he'll get to a part where it says something that he knows that he shouldn't say, and then he just skips it or says something else. It's pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you did that, and so it's immersive, right? You when you're doing that, you're kind of eating, breathing, and sleeping it every day, and you don't really know what else is going on in the world, right?
I mean, when I would go to this market next door to the place where I was staying at pretty much every morning, they had a really nice deal for breakfast. You pay like $6 and you get a nice breakfast platter, which is quite a deal for New York City and the prices that you have to pay there. So yeah, it was in those time periods. I would look on my phone on Twitter and kind of see a few tidbits of what was going on outside of the world of the Maxwell trial. But yeah, it was very much like I mentioned, tunnel vision. It was just completely immersed in. It's kind of in terms of breaking through, which is a concept we've talked about. You have to know when that, because I knew that there was that potential there for the Maxwell trial to be a launching point for getting my work more well known, but I didn't. You never know for sure if it's going to pan out the way you maybe predict. So,
well, you seem to be the only independent source that a lot of people could go to. So I saw you as a guest on all kinds of other shows, right? Who were all the people that you interviewed with after that?
Yeah, that was nuts. I was on Jason Burmis's show. Richard Grove, I think you mentioned before.
Yeah, Richard Grove.
You really like
Grand Theft World. He's very good. Does great stuff. Jason Burmis. I mean, those guys are the tip of the spear. Jason Burmis and Richard Grove. So. Yeah.
And that was and then they reached out to me, and the fact that they did that was very very high praise in itself. And then the Convo Couch too with Craig Jardula, and then Fiorella Isabella, and there was a few others. There's this guy, he goes by, what is it, like the Mighty Joe Show, I think he had me on. There was a few. There's the Coy Contrarian, Action for Assange. A couple of people saw my Assange video that I did in the mountains in North Carolina last year, and they were like, okay, this guy's, he's supportive of Assange. I want to see what he's about. So there's a couple Assange interviews as well at the Action for Assange people, and I lamented that because I wasn't able to make a flight to DC to cover that Assange rally on Friday a couple weeks ago, which I think they should have scheduled for Saturday. I don't know why they did it for Friday, but yeah, when people mentioned Matthew Russell Lee, and
I love that guy. I love that guy.
He is the man. He's the freaking man. He's one of those. He's a pioneer. He's like one of those guys that's you just can't put into a box, and really.
Right. Well, the work that he's done on the UN, just exposing, the stuff. He's the only voice out there who's talking about the corruption in the UN. He's the only one out there. Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Pretty much. He really is putting a lot of responsibility on his own back by himself, and learning from him and interacting with him, and people kind of pegged us two as the leaders in the Maxwell trial coverage, which I was just happy to to even see that, because that's his stomping ground. That's all he does is cover SDNY court cases. So
right, and the UN.
Yeah, and the UN, which he got kicked out of. They ripped his shirt.
But it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop him from covering their press conferences every day, where he yells at the screen. It's great. It's fantastic.
Yeah, he's fearless. He really is. He just I don't know what it is. It's like there's some people that they have that ability to just say the uncomfortable truth, and I think he's one of them.
Well, I mean, living in truth is just a way that you've got to do it. I used to watch Andrew Breitbart and wonder how he could sit there, Ann Coulter also, like sit there on Bill Maher's show and just, let these people kind of lambast him, and then just comes roaring back, And I think I've gotten to a point where I understand that you have to live in truth, right? And you can't let the words that are coming out of somebody else's mouth affect, what you believe about yourself and why you're doing what you're doing. And if you can do that, then it gives you, in karate, I guess what do they call it? Your ki or your gi or something. It's like your center, so that it keeps you from being knocked down when you take the hit. And so I admire that in people, and I think I've gotten better at it. I'm still not as good as some people, but it's really a talent. And I think I read Vaclav Havel's the power of the powerless. And he says in that essay, he says you gotta live in truth, and once you live in truth, then it makes it easier. I recently unregistered to vote a couple of months ago.
Oh wow.
And I did that because I think politics is fake and gay. And, having been there on January 6th, you were there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I was.
And even though you and I were in the same place, we never saw each other.
No, we didn't. We actually didn't see each other that day.
Right, yeah.
That's right. Yeah.
Because there was a lot of people there.
There was a lot of people there.
But it's interesting because since I unregistered to vote, I found myself being able to be more critical of Trump. I found myself coming to the understanding David Knight's separation from Alex Jones, and the fact that David Knight was adamant that Operation Warp Speed was undoing every good thing that Trump might have done ever, and that led to his kind of separation from Alex Jones. I wasn't ready to go there. After I unregistered to vote, like my mindset changed a little bit. It was like, you know what? I think David Knight is right. I was with Alex on January 6th. There's a great movie, Alex Lee Moyer, who did That Feeling When, No Girlfriend, TWF, and No NG, which was an indie movie that came out last year. About basically like 4chan incels. It was a great movie. She did a great movie. I went to a screening of it. It's called Alex's War. It's about Alex Jones coming out. I think it's coming out this month. Fantastic movie. But I do understand. I understand Alex and I understand David Knight. And because I don't vote anymore, and I think it's all fake, like I don't get emotionally invested in it. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not tied into the winner and the loser of it all. Because I don't think that we're ruled by the people that we vote for, like in any way. I don't believe in justice. So like, you can go to the court and you can go look at that, but so the FBI went out and they arrested all the Johns right after the Ghislaine guilty plea, right?
No, they did not do that. It's funny. Jamie Deluxe did this great art piece. It was like a wanted poster of Ghislaine Maxwell, and it said it was before she got arrested, and it said, "If seen, do not call the FBI." The FBI, I mean, to say that they need to be dismantled is not enough. It's like, what is going to fill that power vacuum? You know what I'm saying? If we're talking practically, it's like, yes, I would love to see all those people at least incarcerated for the rest of their life, if not worse. But what is going to replace that sort of secret police that seems to be a... I'm at a point. I used to think that, but I'm at a point right now where I don't think anybody should go to jail. We should just, like, the Julian Assange nightmare of making everything public should just happen, so that people actually know what's going on. I mean, I've deep dived it. There were conspiracy theorists back in the day who think that the 18th Amendment, which was prohibition, I think, was actually a setup in order to create, in order to turn all of the citizens of the United States into criminals so that they could actually create the FBI. Because one of the net results of the 18th Amendment was that, which was prohibition. I think it was prohibition. You're right.
People can fact check me.
You're right.
Is that it immediately took anybody who drank alcohol in the United States and turned them into a criminal. Right?
Yeah.
So,
it's a lot of people.
I mean, can you imagine today, like, saying something that everybody does is illegal tomorrow? Like, it's ridiculous. It's amazing. So, well, actually, they do it every day. They just do it by degrees now instead of whole swaths of the population. And so one of the net results of the 18th Amendment was that the FBI was created in order to fight all of the booze and liquor coming over the border, which was ostensibly the Brofmans, right? It was the Brofmans working with Al Capone coming across the Great Lakes.
Yes. Yes.
Bring so
Bronfman's, Kennedys. Yes.
Yeah, the Brofmans and the Kennedys, right? Exactly. And so the net result was that J. Edgar Hoover was created as, he was the Fauci of his time, right?
Yeah. There you go.
So, and they never fixed it, right? If you go onto YouTube, you can look for J. Edgar Hoover. I think it's the Kefauver Committee, and he testifies in front of Congress that there is no interstate organized crime in the United States of America. Are you there, Addy?
I was just thinking about this FBI agent that testified in the Maxwell trial.
Your camera went out. That's why I'm saying something.
Oh, can you still hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't see you. Yeah.
Okay, let me turn that on. Her name is Kimberly Mader, Meder, Kimberly.
Okay.
And I was so thoroughly annoyed by this person. I mean, it was like she was a robot. Her answers on the witness stand. It was so obnoxious. And John Kiriakou, a CIA torture whistleblower, Abu Ghraib, the first person to interrogate Abu Zubaydah. It's talked about the brainwashing that goes on in these intelligence agencies. And it's just, they're using, it's like women and blacks are the face of power right now, right? So it's not a mistake. It's not an accident. And I'm not saying this is good or bad. I'm observing that the prosecution, the government, had 3 women and a gay guy. 3 white women, Allison Moe, Laura Pomerantz, and Maureen Comey, and then Andrew Rohrabach, who's gay, who I actually saw his husband in the court. That's not an accident. They think very carefully about who they're selecting to.
Right. They're casting. It's like Disney. They don't have Disney. 100%. Disney doesn't have employees. Did you know that?
I didn't know that. I just drove past Disney yesterday, actually.
Yeah, so Disney doesn't have employees because Walt Disney didn't want them telling him who he had to cast for Snow White. So everyone who works at Disney is a cast member.
Okay.
From the CEO down. Like when you get your ID card, it's your cast number identification. Everyone who works at Disney is a cast member. And that's because the employment laws don't apply to people who are members of a cast.
The war of the words that continues.
So anyway, so all of these people in the trial, they're all cast into a role that they're filling. It's like a direct.
Why did they pick Maureen Comey, daughter of James Comey, FBI director, who was with the FBI in the 90s, as far as I know, when they were covering this Epstein network up?
Right. Because it's because of the F in the control. Mice plus F, right? Money, ideology, compromise or coercion, ego or energy, and family or bloodline, depending upon the way you want to look at it. Those are the way that
the bloodlines. Yeah.
The bloodlines are super powerful. It wasn't until I realized lately that I've got friends who are intelligence assets that are like 3rd generation, that were assets when they were children and didn't know it because they were being handled by their parents.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's insidious. It's insidious. So anyway, so we've got keeping up with the hot takes, because when we started talking about what to do a show about today, Addy was bringing up some things that were hot takes, and then I was asking him about the trial and how it's 2 different mindsets, right? And how I really admire Richard Grove, because Richard Grove's model is that he does if you guys don't follow Richard Grove on Grand Theft World, he's got a great podcast. But what he does on Sundays, he takes notes all week about what's going on, and what it does is it gives him time to kind of like dig a little bit and to do a little bit of research on the things that Luke Rudkowski and Tim Pool are trying to like just shoot out off the top of their heads every day. Jason Burmis is pretty good at bringing all of the context into the current events in real time. Takes a real skill to be able to do that. But Richard, has a much more kind of like measured approach to doing it, and he does these ridiculously long podcasts. They're like 5 hours. Sometimes I think the last one I saw was 7 hours long. But what he does is that he does them in chapters, right? And then what he does is he cuts them up and then he releases them during the week, right? As shorter, like 15-minute sections. But the 15 minutes are focused on one subject, right? It's a really good way to do it. It's a really good way to approach doing it. But what he says on his show is that he doesn't do the hot take thing, because trying to figure out what the smartest thing to say is 5 minutes after something happened. You don't always get the context. You can't always bring in the sources and show how this thing that happened today is related to the 5 other things that happened before it. It's difficult. So I do like Grand Theft World a lot, and it also makes you susceptible, if you're trying to do hot takes. It makes you susceptible to falling for fake news, right?
Yeah, and that was my biggest fear. Like I said last year, doing the daily beat, was just getting led away by someone who's just trying to divert my attention from something more important.
Right. I mean, I noticed last week, if I had thought about it before the show, I'd have it queued up and ready to go. But I didn't even know about this until I looked it on Twitter. Twitter was fact checking a Simpsons episode. So
I saw that.
Yeah. So there was a Simpsons episode where the Simpsons went to Canada, and Lisa is in Trudeau's office, and she asks him an uncomfortable question, and he crawls out the window. And then there's another Simpsons episode where Homer is in a truck with Bart, and there's a truckers' convoy. And somebody who is clever just took those 2 clips and put them together. So it's like the truckers are going down the highway, and then it cuts to Lisa asking Trudeau a question, and then he crawls out the window, and it's all very funny and very topical. And people are saying, "Oh, how did the Simpsons predict this?" Well, the Simpsons didn't really predict it. It was like 2 different clips that were put together, and clearly the people who did it just did it because it was fun, right? Because it was a funny thing. But I only noticed it because Twitter was fact checking the video. It was.
Yeah.
They were calling it fake news, and it was like it's a joke. Like,
it just makes if anything, it just brings more attention to that idea. It's like the Streisand effect a little bit there, but yeah, I noticed. I don't know. I just remember during California, it just seems like the days are longer there. So I'm looking forward to meeting up in the West Coast sometime this year, Peter. Whenever.
Yeah, well, I think that nice weather makes the days seem longer, because when it gets dark, although it's cold when the sun goes down right now, but when it doesn't get cold, when the sun goes down, then you tend to stay out longer, and that's more fun. What else, Addy? What else have you been working on? What's your next thing? You're working on a book.
Yeah. I'm really hoping that's out by this weekend. If I'm got all my ducks in order, maybe a Sunday release, and then I'm just trying to see if I should announce this yet or not. Probably not. I'm gonna wait on that, but I'm gonna be going to a foreign country at some point this year to do reporting there. Maxwell's sentencing is on the 25th of June.
What do you think is going to happen there?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, people want me to predict, and I just don't know. I mean, I try to take things day by day, but at the same time, I have a loose plan of what's going on in the next year or so. But it could be.
Do you get a sense that there's actual justice?
No, I don't, Peter. No, I don't at all. I mean, it just and that's the thing too, is like I think people who know me and know my work well know my skepticism with the state and these people, but at the same time, I try to keep a neutral flavor to.
I'm at a point right now where I'm skeptical that the state is actually a state.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Well, I wonder whether or not it's just a school play that's designed to control us, that there is no state there, that there's a bureaucracy that's controlled by bankers or, NGOs.
It seems like you're overthinking things a little bit. What's the difference if you call it a state or bureaucracy? It's like a small group of people who control us. Right?
I'll be specific. Okay. I don't believe that we have a democratic republic. That is, I'm not being hyperbolic when I say that I think politics is fake and gay, because I think elections are all fake. So there's all these people, and I don't care if it's Trump or Biden. In fact, I'm a big Biden fan at this point. Since I unregistered to vote, I'm a giant Biden fan because I think that he's the perfect role model to demonstrate to everybody in the world that the president of the United States is not in control of the United States of America. Okay. Eisenhower warned us that the military-industrial complex is in control, and I don't think that there's a better example of that than Joe Biden.
Sure. I like that take. Yeah, I think that's not a bad take at all. Yeah.
So go Joe. Let's go Brandon. Whatever. It's like, if Joe Biden being the president of the United States doesn't prove to you that the whole thing is fake, then nothing will.
Even like I was talking to someone that I'm related to recently, and I was like, come on, like you got to admit, like this was a bad choice voting for this guy. And this person was like, yeah, I think the thing that did it for me was the Afghanistan withdrawal. And I was like, look, there's no way you just forget that much assets, that much.
That's not an accident. That's not an accident.
Come on, people don't even forget their $500 cell phone at their friend's house. You think the United States, the empire, is going to just forget 85 billion with a B dollars worth of?
Didn't they forget pallets of money?
This is not $85 billion worth of sunflower seeds. This is $85 billion worth of weapons.
Right.
Weapons, which even though we're legally allowed to have in the United States, if you have a weapon on you in the United States and you get pulled over, you are treated as if you are, I don't know, a terrorist or something like that. And
it depends on where you are, but yeah.
I mean,
there would have to be police to pull you over, though, and I could tell you in Los Angeles that the guys. I had a homeless guy living in my laundry room a couple of months ago, and
okay.
My building manager came over and he called the cops. 5 hours later, the cops showed up, and by that time, the homeless guy had left, but the cops came up to me, and two cops, Asian and Hispanic. One of the cops looks at the other, and he goes, "Did you turn your body cam off?" And I said, and the guy said, "Yeah." And the guy looked at me, and he said, "I really want to apologize." And I said, "For what?" And he said, "Well, it took us 5 hours to get here. That wasn't very good." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "But I just need you to know something." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, we lost, after the riots last summer, we lost 40% of the officers in our division. They resigned. They quit. So the good news is if you're traveling with a weapon, is that you're probably not going to get pulled over by a cop, because there aren't any cops to pull you over, at least on this side of town. So
sure. It's.
I have my assault pitchfork up here.
I see that with the sniper scope.
Yeah, exactly.
Just in case you can't see the guy three feet in front of you.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it
has a laser too, if you want to stick somebody in the dark.
Okay, I might have to use that. We'll take it out to the range when I'm out in Cali.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get a bale of hay, and you can just. Although it's technically a manure fork, so
Okay, I'll shovel your manure for you, Peter, in exchange for rent. But it's the cop issue is a whole other thing. But I mean, we discussed pre-show, like the Manosphere and the Ukraine, Joe Rogan, Spotify. So wherever you want to take it, Peter.
Well, we could talk about Joe Rogan for a second. I mean, that's where you wanted to start, and I thought it was almost a meme at this point. But somebody asked me earlier, what I thought of Malone. So privately, somebody was asking me.
I saw him last weekend or 2 weekends ago now.
Look, I like Malone. I think that he's talking about things that are real.
I think he wears makeup. I don't know.
I wonder about I wonder what George would say though, and I wonder what the limited hangout of it may be, because he is a DTRA guy, right? The agency that he worked with was the DTRA, and all things kind of start with the DTRA, right?
I want to bring an idea forward of certain people such as Malone being useful in the short term, but not in the long term. Sometimes people who have that sort of foresight, like George, can prevent themselves from, acting more logistically in the present. Where it's like Malone, as far as I can tell, is fighting for the good guys at this current point in time. Now,
I want to believe that. Yeah.
I mean, when you look at the results of what he's doing, it's like, and I'm not to say I don't have my doubts or distrusts about the CIA comment and the Rogan interview, for example. Is not to be overlooked, but
you want to remind me of that one.
He basically said something to the effect of, I worked for the CIA at some point. I can't remember the exact quote, Peter, but my point is, like, in World War II, the Battle of Stalingrad, for example, General Marshal Zhukov, Field Marshal Zhukov, he realized that it was the best idea was not to, keep your distance from the Germans, but he called it hugging the Germans. So he would get, and it's kind of like a jujitsu concept. It's like the safest place for me, if Peter Duke wants to do physical harm to Addy Adds, or let's flip the script. Say Addy Adds wants to do physical harm to Peter Duke. The safest place for Peter to be is as physically far away as possible. The second safest place is to be literally right on top of me, where like Peter is hugging me and preventing me from, he's grappling with me and preventing me from doing harm to him. So
right from maneuvering.
It's counterintuitive, but it's like the second safest place is right on top of the person that's trying to kill you, right? So hugging the German line, the front line, prevented their artillery from being used, because if they did use them, they would blow up their own guys. So
right.
In that sense, I think we can apply it to this informational war we're in, where it's kind of like the Littlefinger quote from Game of Thrones: "Everyone is your friend, everyone is your enemy." And he says, "Win the battle everywhere in your mind first." And so I think it's like a mindset almost. But as far as the Malone thing, I think we should try to give people the benefit of the doubt, if at least in the moment they seem to be working for your side.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And again, judge people by their fruits, right? By what they are producing. I'm of like mind. I mean, I want to like Malone. What was the CIA quote that he made though?
I could probably look it up, but
somebody will tell us in the chat room. We could find out. Yeah, Mark is great at figuring out the underlaminate. But it's funny because James Mark does deep diving, but there's a surface level game that James Corbett turned me on to, which is like 1 degree of World Economic Forum. That is, it's like every company that has had some kind of a giant cyber attack or some kind of a big thing happen to them in the news in the last year, they're almost all members of the World Economic Forum, which is why he calls it the 1 degree. And,
Isabel Maxwell, World Economic Forum. She gave us a piece one night.
Like Carhartt last week announced that they were going to fire anybody. Carhartt, America's working brand, was going to fire anybody who wasn't vaccinated in their company. Well, Carhartt is not. Carhartt is part of an organization that is a sustainability organization that is part of the World Economic Forum. So, Carhartt is 2 degrees from the World Economic Forum, but they're a member of an organization that's affiliated with the World Economic Forum. So, even though you can't find Carhartt specifically listed as a member, you can see if you go to the World Economic Forum website and you type in Carhartt, you can find that there's all kinds of references to Carhartt. So,
wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's easier, I think, that if again, one way of doing it is to do what Mark does, which is that he looks up every piece of data that he can find on an individual and goes back. The other way that you could do it is just like the George Webb compound search. Go to World Economic Forum, type in Carhartt, see what comes up.
Right, yeah.
So, but Rogan, I thought Rogan's response was, I didn't have a lot of respect for it.
What response was that?
He went on to Instagram and he responded a couple of days later to all of the outrage after Neil Young and what's her name? Who was it? Woman singer, Joni Mitchell, and Nils Lofgren, heavy hitter, big hitter, Nils Lofgren. Only reason I know the guy's name is because I dated a girl in high school who liked him, he came online and he said, I understand that when I interview certain guests that there should probably be a warning, that there may be misinformation. And it's like, that doesn't sound like that sounds like you're bending a knee. It sounds like you're giving in to a bully. I guess my comment was that, oh, you're giving in to the bullies, Joe. Like, I don't know. I'm a free speech absolutist. I believe that more speech, not less. And how do you know who all the idiots are if you don't let them talk?
Right.
Right. There are a lot of people who have gotten banned. I would say most of the people who have gotten banned, I don't agree with them on a lot of things. But I don't think they should be banned.
Right. Yeah. Two different issues.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I mean, Rogan, people talk about him as if he's he's a figurehead of sorts in terms of the podcasting world. And I criticize him for being maybe not as smart as some people, or having a big ego when he was younger, which he did. But the fact that he, like I said, people are calling him a highly paid actor, an asset. That may be the case, and it probably is the case if I was a betting man. But what is Rogan doing? What are the results of what he's doing?
Right.
He is promoting discourse, and he's providing a platform, a very large platform.
Yep.
Many times larger than CNN's platform and Fox's. And
it's the nature. I mean, it's the nature of it, right? So one of the things, and if I'm boring you, I've said this before, I apologize, but I read this book by C. Wright Mills called the Power Elite, and in the book he described.
You've been into this, I know.
Yeah,
for the past like 6 months, I know. You like this book. I got to read it. I'm going to read it.
Well, I mean, I have a chart. I don't think it'll work in this video so well, but maybe I'll link to it later. But the idea is that when Madison and Adams and Jefferson were envisioning the way that this government would work, that they thought that, well, Peter would be talking to Addy and to Joe Rogan and to Dr. Malone, and they would be looking at a problem that they've got, and they would, amongst themselves, they would get together, and then they would figure out what a solution was for whatever that problem is. And then they would they would either elect an official to represent them, or they would go meet with an elected official, and then that elected official would represent them and the government would make some kind of an adjustment based on what the people want, right? And that what we've done in the mass society, and the Mills was referring to the same mass society that Malone is talking to. So it took me a while to get my arms around it. I read this part of the book, I'm not exaggerating, like a half a dozen times. Mass is a sociological term for a society that is controlled by media. And so when Malone is talking about mass delusion, he called it a mass delusion psychosis. The sociologists just call it a mass delusion. That is, it's a bunch of people who are deluded based on the fact that they're being controlled by the media. So where am I going with this? That in a mass, you have teams that get formed. So Alexander Hamilton, for example, started the Federalist Party. The Constitution was signed, and they went for a couple of years using this system that was envisioned by Adams, Jefferson, and Madison. And then Hamilton turns around and forms a political party. Well, Jefferson goes, "Oh, I know what you're doing." He forms his own political party. Now you have a dialectic, right? Now you have Team Red and Team Blue. And instead of people sitting and coming up with, for any problem that's out there in the world, you've got an infinite number of solutions, right? And you probably have, I don't know, depending upon the problem, a dozen different ways that you could play any problem. But in reality, we are only ever given the choice between left and right. We are given the choice between red and blue. We are given the choice between Democrat and Republican. We are given the choice between liberal and conservative. It's always this dialectic, right? I've heard Vox Day and Jay Dyer talk about this stuff for years, and they go dialectic, 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 and I didn't know what they were talking about. It means having two choices presented to you. Pick one, okay? Because those are all the choices that you get. And in the realm of things, if you understand that we've really been turned into a socialist state, starting with FDR, there isn't really that much of a difference between the Republicans and the Democrats, except who we're going to bomb this year, right? Like, it's not whether or not we're going to bomb people. Are we going to bomb our own people, or are we going to bomb their people? Are we going to bomb people because we want energy, or are we going to bomb people for some other reason? But we're still bombing people. I mean, the military-industrial complex. I used to be a kid, and I realized how hypnotized I was when I was growing up. There are all of these movies and things that kind of like glamorized war, and I knew every kind of airplane that the United States Air Force, the United States Navy flew, and I could tell you all of the ships and tanks by their outlines, and I was an expert on all that stuff, and I always marveled at like the technical abilities of the Germans and all this other stuff. All of this crap is designed to kill people. It may be beautiful looking. The F-35 may be a beautiful looking plane. I like the F-22 better, but they're both designed to blow the shit out of people. Like,
yes,
I don't really want to blow the shit out of people anymore. Do we, in 2022, do we still need to blow people up? We need to invent enemies. We need to invent the Russians, or we need to create some kind of a crisis in Ukraine that's not there, so that we can send over 100,000 Americans to die. Like, that doesn't sound like, and even more Ukrainians and Russians. Like, that doesn't sound like a good idea. So, anyway, so the problem with the mass society is that now you've got Team Malone, right? And the way that Daniel List explains it is that you always have like the official story. So the official story is that COVID-19 is a pandemic, right? And that vaccines are safe and effective, right? Does that mean I'm going to get demonetized or banned right now for saying that? I mean, that's the official word, right? Then you have independent journalists out there. You have Alex Berenson, right? You have independent specialists, Dr. Malone, right, who are saying something else, right? And then what List explains is that there's always this third level of counterintelligence out there that's making up these kind of crazy extreme Q stories, right, that sound almost credible, right? And they may say they may be like the cheerleaders of Malone, or they may be the cheerleaders of the people that you're standing behind, but then they go off and they do something crazy. So there was a woman doctor who was on this show, Stu Peters, and she was a doctor from Arizona, and she was showing what she called microscope photographs of some kind of like little alien beings that were inside the vaccine that she had looked at. Cool story. Okay. There was nothing about it that seemed credible to me. Right. But Stu Peters is a right-wing conservative guy, and I'm looking at who appeals to his base is MAGA people. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, this is like the kind of like ridiculous nonsense that they need to throw out there in the world in order to kind of discredit anybody who's going against the conventional narrative. So you have the woman who says that there's aliens in the shots, right? And then you attach her to somebody like Malone, who's credentialed and reasonable. And then what it does is it causes a general distrust in the audience for any kind of alternate sources. And then they run back to the official narrative and they go, oh, well, I'm going to stick with the official narrative because it's the official narrative, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
controlled opposition.
Yeah, so it's always a question, right? So the thing is about Rogan is that some people finally on the other side started seeing the danger of deplatforming people for having conversations.
Yeah, and that's why I'm like thinking about buying Spotify stock now. It's because
it dipped by the dip.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I'm thinking about it. Because my younger brother, he's a gamer, and he was big on the GameStop thing for a bit, and then he's like, yeah, I'm just convinced the CEO is, bad news, which I probably could have told him from the beginning, but yeah, I still might do the GameStop stock, but yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about that just because of they're taking a bet, and the question, I think the deeper question is, what is the drive for the CEO? Is it money, or is it integrity? Is it ethics? The
CEO of Spotify?
Yeah. Why is he standing up for Rogan? What do you think? I would say money, but I mean.
Well, I think we'd be having a different conversation if it was Taylor Swift or Kanye West.
Sure.
I think that, well, because I think that most of the people who care about Neil Young are dead or about to be dead. They're my generation, right? The people who care about Joni Mitchell, or I don't think Neil Young's audience is actually on Spotify. I don't think that, and maybe. Sure. Also, half of Neil Young's catalog is owned by BlackRock.
BlackRock again.
Okay, again.
Maxwell trial, Spotify. Oh my gosh, BlackRock.
Right. So, did Neil Young get a call? Joni Mitchell. It's Joni Mitchell, right?
It's just sad.
Yeah. Joni Mitchell dated David Geffen when she was young.
Oh, wow.
But again, I don't believe that Joni Mitchell or Neil Young are going to have any kind of monetary. There's no monetary repercussion to them. If anything, it makes their catalogs. It was a great marketing ploy because they're suddenly in the news.
Any attention is good attention.
Like if you go and do a Google search on Joni Mitchell or on Neil Young, and you look at that. How you can put in a search term on Google and it'll show you the trend. My guess is that Joni Mitchell did this, that Neil Young did this, because nobody has been searching for their name.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid reason or possibility for the motivation.
But my guess is Taylor Swift and Kanye West probably get significant checks from Spotify every month.
Yes,
right.
I would wager that's the case. Yes.
And at that point, it simply becomes a math problem, which is, do we generate more revenue from Joe Rogan or do we generate more revenue from Kanye?
That's what I'm thinking too. 11 million monthly listeners. That's nothing to smirk at. especially when you look at how abysmal the state of corporate.
Right, but how
media
many airplays does Taylor Swift get? A billion? How many, or Kanye West? A billion? Or Ariana Grande? A billion? You know, it's like it's going to be some huge number, right? And so at that point, it just becomes a math question.
I wanted, we mentioned before too, talking about how to detect an asset, whether it's an Aconus lure or otherwise. Like, what if a beautiful woman contacts you, and then she wants to meet up? How do you know she's not, working for some foreign intelligence service?
You don't. I mean, and that's one of the things that it's probably one of the things that you're probably starting to discover is like I got into journalism in 2014 because I was a true believer because I met Andrew Breitbart and he said one person could make a difference and I thought,
One man can change the world.
And I thought, oh, well, I'm one guy, and I've got a camera, and I can take pictures of people who are saying the things that I like. And all of a sudden, the New York Times noticed, and they wrote a profile on me, and they called me the Annie Leibovitz of the alt-right. And then all of a sudden, I was a made man. You know, it was like, oh, I had a rep. You know, and what happens is that you get accepted into circles, and what you find in journalism is that the more stories you break, then the more think of the pyramid on the back of the dollar bill. As you build an audience, as you get better at what you're doing, as you become more popular, then you move up that pyramid and get closer and closer to the unfinished top, right? So when you're up there, when you get to close to the top of the unfinished pyramid, then you get a tap on the shoulder, okay? And the rubric that they use, which is a CIA rubric, is MICE plus F. You and I have talked about it before. Money, ideology, compromise, coercion, ego, energy, and family. They'll use one of those vectors in order to be able to take control of you. So sex is an easy one, right? Appealing to your ego. You know, maybe somebody comes and starts talking to you who's quote unquote out of your league, you know, whatever you want to call it. But you start thinking, well, they obviously they're attracted to me because of the good work that I do, right?
That's what you want to believe. Right?
That's what you want to believe, and then you have to vet them, I suppose. You know, but you know, it becomes a problem. Look at what's his name? Who's the congressman who has the Chinese spy girlfriend?
Swallow.
So Swalwell. Do you think Swalwell thought his girlfriend was a spy when he started dating her? Yeah.
I mean, for a politician, that's just naive, I think. Come on, man.
I've met a lot of dumb politicians. Like,
I think you don't get to be a politician unless you're, it's like the policeman thing. Like there was a case, I want to say it was in the 90s. There was a guy, his IQ, it wasn't that high, but it was high. It was like 126, and they wouldn't let him be a cop because his IQ was too high. So maybe that's something going on there. It's like you test too high in the mental capabilities, and like you can't.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of people who think that you don't become that you don't even get allowed to be in the politics club unless they do have some compromise on you. I mean, one of the things about like fraternity initiations, right? Is that fraternity initiation is about doing two things. It's about breaking down your ego and making you a part of the club, right? So they destroy the individuality in you and they make you a part of...
Yes. And a psychological phenomenon that Peter's talking about is such that the more traumatic or painful this initiation experience is, the deeper the connection is felt between the group.
And and this can be construed as satanic because if you look at Ilfai Levy's depiction of the Baphomet Satan character, tattooed on the two arms are Salve and Coagula, which means to break something down and then to bring it back together in the way that you want it to be, like
coagulant.
Yeah, exactly. So like you destroy civil society using a pandemic, right? Mm-hmm. And then you reform it using the Build Back Better model So you break things down in order to build them up. You break them down to build them up. So in a initiation, what there's two things that happen. One is that your sense of self gets destroyed and gets folded into a sense of a membership in a group, in a unique group, and you feel more powerful than you did as an individual. But the second thing that happens is that they get compromise on you, right? You go and you do something that other people in that club know you did, that they can hold against you, that they can hold against you later, right? Which makes me think, like I think about Andrew Cuomo, right? Andrew Cuomo did all these terrible things to all of these people in nursing homes, and there's no response. But he puts his hand in the wrong place with a woman that works for him, and he's out. You know, Jeff Zucker can do all of the terrible things that Jeff Zucker has done for the last 5 or 6 years, and he gets bounced because he's having an affair. Because because who's the Como who was at CNN? Because the brother.
Chris?
Yeah, because Chris Como is mad that he got fired. I mean, all of this stuff is when it goes back to like George's slap and seal. Why are we always outraged by the private proclivities of these people instead of looking at the real crimes?
It's like what Ryan said. There's only two things that'll end your political career in the United States: sexual depravity or sexual misbehavior, and then racism. And I would say even just the accusations of such are enough.
Yep.
Yeah,
Me Too. Yeah, I have a friend who's an executive producer on a TV show, and he got Me Too'd out of his job, and nothing ever happened except he was accused of it.
It just seemed more like a witch hunt to me than, I don't know. I mean, I think there was like definitely some validity there with the cause, but
well, it's got a very Alinsky feel, because one of Alinsky's rules is use the enemy's rule book against them.
Oh, nice. There you go.
So it's got a very kind of Alinsky feel, and I'm waiting for them to take out the rest of the people at CNN. It would be funny if Trump took his the company that is doing. It would be funny. It would be funny if Trump just bought CNN. That would be the funniest thing.
I want to bring up an anecdote related to this. I was at someone's house once, and I was talking on the phone outside, and this woman came out, and it was in like a condominium area, and she was like, "Do you live here? Like, who are you?" And which I think is understandable, but my host basically came out and was like, "What are you doing? Like, you can't harass my roommate's hosts. Leave them alone," type of thing. And I was like, "Yeah, man, I agree with you, but like this woman could throw me in jail very easily if she wanted to." And I was standing with somebody and talking to them, and they were like, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, all she has to do is call the cops and be like, this man is threatening me, and that's it, And so that's why I was like, "Oh, no, I was very polite, and like maybe before I would be like, "Who are you? Like, I'm staying with my friend here, and you could have been a little bit more polite about the way you were talking to me." But it's just that the social climate we're in, and again, I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but that women have that ability because of their vulnerability in certain situations, but I think it gets abused as anything does. Anyways.
No, I think you're right, and that is, again, I think about Keanu Reeves and the open hands.
Yeah, where he just doesn't touch anybody. He's just like,
right.
Yeah.
But to your point,
how can you blame him? How can you be mad at him?
To your point, I've had people who I've run into in the last couple of years who I thought were way more interested in me than made logical sense, and I basically practiced the Keanu Reeves open hand approach, which is like, I'll talk to them, but
Yeah, yeah. You just don't know who you're dealing with and how stable they are, right?
right.
Or not. But
Right, and we have close associates that have been burned, by their personal relationships with people. And it doesn't even have to be
it's
somebody who's necessarily operating in bad faith. I think that
no. It's the single most important. I think it's the single most important thing that decides where you go is who
Travis
you are
Travis Kalanick,
physically spending time with, and
right?
like even if you can't control it, because I had a situation where if I didn't happen to be placed with these particular roommates, which were random,
Hmm.
it would have been a different situation. But yeah, it's like who are you spending time with? Who are you giving your time to? It has such a profound impact on your life.
Yep. Well, I have 3 rules I live my life by. One is that you can pick your friends and you can pick your nose, but you can't pick your parents. The second one is if you roll in dog poop, you smell like it. And the third one is that things happen when they're supposed to. So if you're hanging out with the wrong people, you're going to be rolling in dog poop. That's all I have to say. So
Yes, you are at some point or another. And we would be remiss to not mention the manosphere because Roosh is on the thumbnail of our show tonight.
yeah, that we did. Yeah, that we did kind of as a little joke. We were Roosh is actually this might be a good time for me to pull up the thing that I've been working on that I can pimp now, right? So I have been working in the last week or so. I've been talking about this online with George and other people like that for years, and I've been trying to get them to do things. And so instead, I just decided that I was just going to go ahead and do it myself. And this is a website that I've been working on. You can see George's name there, which is thedukereport.com. And this is kind of like my hat tip homage to the Drudge Report. You passed Carrie paused Roosh's show, paused Roosh for our show. And you can see Roosh. I think where is Roosh? Roosh is up over on the right side there. So basically, this is a web page that is just pulling RSS feeds, and I think Addy Adds is on there someplace. Let me. I might have to scroll to go find it, and
you should put me on the top, Peter.
Wait, I can probably do that right now if I can find the tab. I found the tab.
I think I'm in the third column, if I recall.
Third.
Right under
Addy Adds right there, yeah.
Right under the Harry the Greek, as he would have any day.
Well, Harry the Greek was great because Harry the Greek called me up as soon as I put this up and said, "Hey, you forgot me," and I explained to Harry that he didn't have an RSS feed, and that and this is something that I said to George, ad nauseum. But if you've got an RSS feed, but George is on here because George does happen to have a Substack. Substack has an RSS feed. So the reason that Addy is on here and the reason George is here is because Substack has an RSS feed. Harry was able to add RSS to his, but down where is it? Where is? Here's Bill Taylor. Bill Taylor has always had RSS stream. So what I've done is I've gone around the internet, and if the person has like David Knight, his webpage has no RSS feed, but he streams on a platform that has RSS feed. So I was able to pull the RSS feed from one of his streaming platforms. So basically all this does is it pulls up the last 1 or 2 stories that have been published on a platform every day. So you can go to this. You can go to this right now if you want. It's open to anybody. It's thedukereport.com. And if you go there, you'll find that these are the sources that I look at. And kind of the rubric that I used for determining is that I think politics is gay or fake and gay, and that I'm really interested in evidence-based news stories. And as far as I can tell, all of the sources that I've chosen. Like, for example, I've got The Last Refuge, which is the Conservative Treehouse. And full disclosure, I work with the Conservative Treehouse, and I like the people over there that run that. But I've also got Glenn Greenwald, and I've got the Gray Zone, and Aaron Mate. Those guys are not right wingers, although they're probably, since the Overton window is like shifting so far over, they may be considered right wing at this point. But I try to look for people who cover the news in a very kind of like evidence based way. And so this is the kind of stuff that I look at. And Dr. Malone is here for now. He hasn't updated lately. I try to move the sites up to the top that are being updated more. I got your your buddy over at Inner City Press. He's just vomiting stuff out all the time.
He's a fucking machine. Yeah. He is the man. Yeah, he's prolific.
And here's a website that I discovered through Catherine Austin Fitts. So there's a link to Catherine Austin Fitts down here, right here. But Catherine, the RSS feed is broken on Catherine Austin Fitts' website. I can't make it work.
Oh, shoot.
So, there's a lot of people out there who are like on the right platform, which is, self-hosted WordPress, but they don't exactly know how to configure it. This website that I found here through Catherine Austin Fitts, Wall Street on Parade, is great. It's a husband and wife team, and they write one story a day on usually about the Fed. And these are stories that you will never see on the Wall Street Journal. You will never see them on Forbes. You will never see them on Fortune. You will never see them on CNBC or Fox Business, because they really do a deep dive on the Fed and really pay attention to what's going on. And they only write one story a day.
Wow. Looks like Peter got cut out there, but Wall Street on Parade is the outlet that Peter Duke was just discussing there. And looks like he hopped back in here. So he's going to continue sharing his sources on his
I
on
clicked
his
on the wrong thing. All right. Am I back? Do you hear me? Do you see me?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So I thought I was clicking on the Duke Report, and instead I clicked on our live stream and knocked myself off. Anyway, but where it, and now I've lost it. All right, I'm going to stop talking about my website. Go to the Duke Report.
No worries. Yeah, and we got that in the show notes, as far as I know.
Well, it'll be I usually put it in the show notes after we finish the show.
Okay, and we might be doing this more often.
Yeah, look, Lauren, I don't know what Lauren's deal is. She's still live streaming, but I haven't talked to her lately. And Tracy has a very successful career doing something else right now. So, so if Addy wants to keep doing this with me, we'll have to change the logo on the.
Yes, we will. And I definitely do want to keep doing that. Peter, I think we have great chemistry, and I love talking to you. You're one of my favorite interviewees, I gotta say. Well,
I like talking to you too, Addy, because it's like I think that we both have this slightly cynical. I tweeted out the other day that my
we're NTJs, on the METI. You're ENTJ, I'm INTJ.
Yeah, we're NTJs. So
pretty rare, actually, as far as personality types go for the Myers-Briggs assessment. Anyway,
see,
only one framework to view human personalities, so not an end-all be-all.
See, Addy, I'm not the only one. So I said that we wouldn't have to change the logo because Addy's got long hair, but
it's coming off this year, probably, guys. I'm gonna donate it this year. I know I said I was gonna do it last year, but I'm just. I haven't gotten around to it. I called one morning, I was for an appointment, and then I didn't go to get it cut. But it's coming off this year, so just be ready. It's just a matter of when.
Really?
When that is.
I don't know.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna donate it, and I'll grow it out again. My hair grows pretty quickly, so.
Did anyone see Heather and Brett Weinstein clip of them answering a question about Elon Musk stating that we need population? It was very creepy. No, I didn't see it. But like Elon is one of those guys that I take with a giant grain of salt. So this will be the first time that you hear it. I think that he's being queued up to be the next Trump, which is why he's tweeting out all this populist stuff right now. Like he understands the zeitgeist and he's tweeting this stuff up. So when they finally collapse the American government and they need to come up with some technocracy in order to replace that he'll be our first Caesar, right? He'll be our first,
Sure.
And they're trying to set it up that way so that it looks, really populist. Like he's a man of the people and all this stuff, even though that he made all of his money, every single thing that he's ever been the head of came straight out of DARPA. It's I want to believe everything that Elon Musk says, but he wants to put nanochips in my brain.
None dare.
What do you got? What are you going to
DARPA.
show me?
I gotta do it here.
You got a DARPA? Did you get that? You got that from the neighborhood news studio?
Yeah, it's one of George's mugs.
Right, exactly. All right, well, this is great. Been great, Addy. We should do it again.
Yes.
And
yes,
does anybody have any
tuning
anybody have any questions?
Yeah, any audience members has questions before we sign off? Thanks for tuning in.
There are 21 of you watching tonight.
Please support me on Buy Me a Coffee and support Peter as well. And that's great that we got like a joint account now. We should just do this and then split the dough, and then we don't have to pay too.
Tell me what Buy Me a Coffee is.
Oh, I gotta refer you on there. I'm gonna get Peter on Buy Me a Coffee and Rockfin. So Buy Me a Coffee is basically a more First Amendment friendly Patreon. Basically, people can buy
and people were asking me last week because Linktree banned me. I don't know how you get banned for links, but
yeah, I was the first one, I think. As far as I know.
When is the next show? Well, that's a good question because it seems like with 21 people following us, Friday evening is probably not the best time.
Yeah, well, we could go again next week and build this up. I think.
I was the original show I was doing on Sunday afternoons because it seemed to be like counter programming 60 Minutes, and
nice. People
seemed to like that. So that was always a good time slot for me.
Sunday. Yeah.
It wasn't good for Tracy, but it was good for me. So
okay.
Maybe if you want to do this on Sunday, we can do it Sunday again.
Yeah, let's try for that. It'll be a counter Super Bowl, counter 60 Minutes.
All right, and but getting back to my link, so my link tree is gone, but I'm going to put my links up on the Duke Report. So I'm going to do a couple of things. I'm going to add books. Now, if you go to the Reality OS, which is a website that Tracy and I did, there's a bunch of books on there, but I'm going to put the books on the Duke Report also, so people can take a look at what Peter's been paying attention to. Tracy will come back. Tracy had me read 2 books. We can book club this with the audience. Tracy had me read 2 books. One is called The King in Orange, and the other one is called The War for Eternity. And The King in Orange is supposed to be about Trump. It's kind of about the occult. I got a lot of good information about a guy named Oswald Spengler in that book. And then The Prince, and then The War for Eternity. Again, both of these books led me to something else. So the books were good, but learning about Spengler was more interesting than The King in Orange to me. And learning about a guy named Olavo. Let me see if I can share this one more time. If I can. Share screen. And I don't know what happened to the tab that I had open. Anyway, there's a guy named Olavo D. Cavallero and he did this great debate online, 2009, via blogs with Alexander Dugin, and that's great. It's a great debate, and Olavo is like, Dugin is supposedly the spiritual advisor to Putin, and Olavo is the spiritual advisor to Bolsonaro, and he lives in Virginia. He's somebody you might want to go interview.
Did you see
Addy.
Bolsonaro just totally snub Justin Trudeau? I think it was at the UN meeting.
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Oh, that was.
I thought that was old though.
It was It was a while ago.
I thought that was old. Yeah.
Peter's like for Peter, it's like yesterday is old news. You know, we're just in different mindsets right now. So.
Well, I'm just an old geezer. You know.
Well, let's do this again on Sunday, Peter.
All right, I'll talk to you. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Please
talk to you
support us
later.
both.
Yep. Yeah.
Stay frosty.
Like and subscribe and do all those things. Yeah. If you're here, you've probably already done that.